Hello, beautiful people. Coming at you live from Pensacola, Florida. On my way to Miami, my journeys have taken me quite far in this month of February. At the start of February, I was in Arizona, in Phoenix. Went to Tucson, also in Phoenix, New Mexico. Then went up to Denver, down to Texas, through Texas, to Louisiana, through a little bit of Alabama and Mississippi, and then Alabama, and now here in Florida on the way to Miami, where I will be located for at least 2 months because it's been so much movement. Reason why, in case anybody's curious, it's just car registration stuff, to be frank. We were initially heading south to avoid the cold, but it's funny because it's freaking cold. It was cold in Amarillo, Texas. Amarillo. It's crazy calling it Amarillo because that's what it is. But when I called it that to Texans, they were like, who? What? Oh, Amarillo? Anyway, that was just funny because that is a Spanish word, y'all. But, yeah, my journeys have carried me very far this month. And I've learned a lot this month. The theme I had for the month, if you follow my newsletter on GariTalks.substack.com, was living from the heart, which for me means like learning to value the insights and lessons within your emotions inside your internal world to then guide your choices, right? So saying what's on your hearts, being honest, practicing courageousness. Courageousness meaning it's a heart-based word. Cor, C-O-R in Latin, is the heart. So courage is actually coming from the heart, being of the heart. It's not necessarily slaying the dragon or what is another, like bravery of like, oh, being fearless or, like vanquishing your fears, but it's doing it afraid. Do it anyway, even though you're afraid. Knowing that what you have in your heart is real, that what you have in your heart is important, and to share that, being able to say I'm hurt, being able to say I'm angry, being able to say I'm frustrated, being able to say I'm sad, being able to say I'm apathetic, I'm disappointed, and I don't know what to do, and just being honest. So that's been the theme of the month, especially since, as I shared with you last month in TN Tools, I was dishonest, and it really just launched a whole new exploration of like, why was I dishonest? Because I don't consider myself a dishonest person. So for me to lie must mean a lot. How did I get so far from my ideals and my values? And so that's what really this month has been about for me. It's been about a lot of reconnecting with my values around truth. Like, what do I find it really important to be truthful about? The little scuttly birds. Oh, hello, Tweety. I don't know if y'all can see that little bird. It's like camouflaged a little bit. Anyway, yeah, I've been reconnecting with myself, taking the time out to just kind of see where I make decisions, what motivates my decisions. When I was being dishonest, I clearly was not living from my heart. What was I living from? I was trying to portray some strange identity, and I don't even know who I was trying to be in that. It was like somebody who doesn't do wrong, maybe somebody who isn't hurtful, because sometimes the truth hurts, right? Sometimes we have uncomfortable truths to share. Sometimes we did something that we're not proud of, or that we're ashamed of, or that we know we shouldn't have done, but the courageous thing is, owning up to it anyway and saying the thing. So yeah, just reconnecting with a lot of those like values, or reconnecting with like, is it more important for me to be comfortable being wrong and maintaining an image of being right, or is it more important for me to embrace the discomfort of being wrong and share that I am wrong so that I can get in the right? And I'm not one really to focus on right and wrong if you followed this page for a while, but I do mean alignment. What is in alignment when I say right, and what is not in alignment, which is lying for me, which is wrong. But I wanted to share, so for Tea and Tools, this is a segment I do once a month for my newsletter, where I share a little tea, a little story about something that has happened recently. Oftentimes it's about conflict, and then some tools that I learned from the space. So the conflict I wanted to share with you is about my traveling partner. He might come and I might walk over and do a little sneak peek at the end if he wants to be in the shot. But I'm currently traveling with my best friend Roland. We've known each other for 5 years, and we've known each other for 5 years. When I lived in Miami, I knew him for 2 years. So in person, we'd spend a lot of time together. Like, one of my favorite people in the world. We talk about scary things. I feel very real with him, feel very childlike with him. I feel like he brings out a lot of my bravery, a lot of my courage. Yeah, and I feel real, like, confident around him. And so he's helped, like, I don't want to, I'm like, how deep am I going to get? I don't want to get into all the details around, like, our friendship. But we matched on Tinder back in the day. And we were physically intimate for a little bit, but mostly realized that our friendship is better without sex. And that was back in, when was I living in Miami? From 2016 through 2018. Yeah. So, like, yeah, I think for the first couple months of our relationship, we were physically intimate. Then, like I said, we just stopped having sex and was more friendly. And from there is actually where we developed our friendship, our best friendship, like, or developed into best friendship, right? Spending time with each other, learning each other, holding space for each other, exploring different aspects of our personality together. But it was also a very limited space, which is why sometimes when I think about it, I've learned so much more about Roland in these past 3 months of him traveling with me. He's the person who helped me buy Reg. And Reg is the van. And he moved in December of 2021. So this past December. So December, January, February. Yeah. So we're on 3 months now. But yeah, like I said, I feel like I've learned so much more about him in these past 3 months than I have ever in the 2 years of knowing him, because there's but so much. I don't know, it's funny when you don't live with somebody, it's very easy to portray particular masks, right? It's easy to portray, you can be yourself for sure, but there's certain things that are just not going to come up in the same way that when you live with somebody, it will come up, right? Because when you're living with somebody, you can't hide yourself anymore. It is what you are up in each other's shit. And especially us living in a van, up in each other's shit, okay? So like I said, we moved in together because we realized our friendship was so important to us. It outweighed a lot of things, like not traditional partnership. It outweighed sex. Like it didn't matter that we weren't physically intimate. It was like, I don't know, we love each other and we really care about each other. And he's really taught me a lot about what love means, outside of what I've attributed it to in romantic relationships, right? I tend to feel like I noticed that we tend to reserve particular feelings for our romantic partners, and it's different than how we feel for our friends. It's often very separate, different worlds. And so he's been teaching me a lot just through experience of like what it means to love somebody for who they are and not what your expectations of them are, right? Like being able to really embrace somebody for who they are, how they are, where they're at exactly, not for their potential, not for who they could be, because those things are important, of course. Like we want to love people for where they're at right now, and then also help them become the person that they can be. But we cannot be more in love with the person that we think they're going to be or what we see in them than what is actually being shown, right? I think that's what gets us in a lot of trouble. And so this journey it's been intense, right? Like we've learned a lot about each other from being so close in the space and realizing we handle things very differently, right? He's a Capricorn, I'm a Scorpio. If y'all into astrology, those are two really intense signs. Real intense, real like grounded in different things. So like I'm very grounded in emotions. I'm very grounded in emotionality, feelings, the darkness, like shadows, spirituality, that kind of stuff. He's very grounded in logical, practical, non-abstract things, right? He's the like, okay, you want to do something, what are the steps that we're going to do to get there, versus I'm like what do you want to do? The ideation, right? As you might imagine, that would lead to conflict. So conflict for me, by definition, the way I define conflict often is a difference of needs. So the example I love to use is when we're talking about a child and a parent, right? A child has a need to explore, venture off and learn and expand, and a parent has a need to protect, literally to protect their seed, right? Because if you're thinking about parenting just on a biological level, you are procreating and that's your bloodline, right? So like these two things come in conflict with each other, right? I can't really touch my fingers like that, but they come in conflict with each other, where the child and the toddlers need, and then eventually teenagers need to explore, will challenge the parents need to protect, because protection often like exploration will come at the expense of your safety, right? You got to be unsafe. You got to go out of your comfort zone to expand and learn something new. And our parents and also like our egos, things like that, they try to keep us safe, right? And so a lot of the time when we come to conflict, and a lot of the time the way we're taught about conflict and the way we are shown to approach it is that one is a winner, one is a loser, or you compromise, right? Or you like, you have to like, somebody loses is how it often feels. And in this case, a lot of the time I've noticed that, like for instance, in the parent case, parents will trump the child's need to explore. Like, I don't care what you need, right? I don't care that you have a need to explore, to expand, to grow. What I need is for you to be safe. So we're going to just go with my plan, right? And that over time will build resentment, right? It actually ends up hurting the child, right? The child doesn't get to explore. The child doesn't get to expand. It can be resentful after that. It can actually hurt them, right? Like if you don't know how to explore, you don't have a sense of curiosity, it's very hard to move through the rest of the world, right? And we're not taught that there are ways to collaborate on a solution, right? So for instance, I don't want to get too far off on this particular example about parenting, but like, you know, whenever kids are playing around, you hear parents like, be careful, watch out now. What you're doing is actually priming your child to be afraid of like harm, right? Versus being like, be aware, you know? I would like for you to play within this radius, right? If you're needing to cross the street, let me know so we can cross the street together, because cars will pass by and sometimes they're not paying attention. So I want to make sure that you're all right. We'll play over here, right? Make sure you're looking. Make sure you try to, when you're jumping off things, land on both your feet. You know, keep your hands to yourself. If somebody's hurting you, come and let me know, right? It's rather than trying to come up with a solution how your child can explore and how you can keep them safe, we tend to be like, I don't need you to explore because it's at the risk of you being unsafe. You get what I'm saying there? So I say that to give a exploration or like a little thought about conflict. So again, when I talk about like my need for depth, my need for abstractness, my need for like, I don't know, I like having intimate, deep conversations about what we want. Sometimes it doesn't have to be action-based. I just like to be able to talk about things without it necessarily being action-based. And sometimes Roland needs it to be action-based for him to connect. Or something needs to be practical and realistic for him to then connect. So that, like, why are we dreaming if that's not what we're doing? Right? And then, so it's like figuring out how to communicate to each other was really, really big in trying to figure out our spaces. But also another thing that came up a lot in our conflict, or led to a lot of conflict, is like, I feel that I have grown through a lot of things that Roland is currently experiencing. In that, like, I don't want to, you know, give too much of his business, but if y'all have been following me for a while, you know that I've worked through a lot of feelings around my worthiness, around my value, around, I don't know, even really wanting to be here on earth, my depression. Like, I don't know if y'all knew, I feel like people don't always know that I was really depressed for like 7 years, at least 7 years. Started in 10th grade, ended. I mean, it still comes up, right? But I would say that I was able to really have a grasp on my emotional regulation, especially in regards to depression, by like 2020. So it's not that long ago. But like, I say that I've developed a lot of tools to like affirm myself, uplift myself, question down my judgments. Like if I feel bad about myself or I feel inclined to talk shit about myself, I don't really feel that way anymore. But if I feel those moments, I don't know, I remind myself that of course I did something wrong. What I'm feeling is natural. You know, like when we do something wrong that we know that we could have done differently, we know that we could have done better, we know this is not of our character, of course you feel guilt, you feel like, I mean, I could have done better. But instead of being like, oh, you're so stupid and what the fuck and all this, it's just more so like okay, well, let's understand why did we do that? Let's understand how to unpack that. Like, what was I trying to avoid? What was I trying to get? Did something trigger that? When has that happened again? Is this a pattern? You know, like I have better questions, better tools to ask myself. And that's been not the case for my friend. So whenever we got into a moment where I needed to share critical feedback or share something, and I've worked also very hard. If y'all know me, I used to be a bully and I used to be a bitch in terms of I used to just say what it is that I was feeling, and like also with the intention to kind of dig and hurt a little bit, versus now I'm like, that actually defeats the purpose. Because if I'm trying to give you a piece of feedback because I want something to transform, or I want to be honest about something, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to be honest about what it is. Like, when you said this, I received it as such, and honestly, I don't really fuck with that. And if we could come up with a better way in the future for us to not have this space, or like, I don't know, so that we can, I don't know, not have to experience this, or if we're experiencing it, is there a different way that we can support each other through it so it doesn't have to get so ugly. So, whatever it is, I've just been learning better about like how to articulate. I've been learning better how to articulate my thoughts and feelings with grace, and not as just a complaint, not just venting at somebody, not just like talking shit about them. Like, cause shame doesn't change anything. Shame can change for sure, can motivate you to take a step, but it's not going to sustain the change, right? So I've been learning how to give critical feedback kindly without being scathing, right? And so I feel like I have worked a lot on that. And so what we kept coming into is that I would say stuff and as kindly as I could, as gracefully as I could, and it would still trigger feelings of insecurity, worthlessness, this whole shame spiral that he would experience. And I remember being like, I was very frustrated because it's like, I can't give you feedback if every single time I'm saying a thing, you're over here like, oh, I'm the worst. It's like, this is unproductive, and honestly, I don't really know what to do with it. And for a while, I guess I was making it my problem, right? I was like, because I kept being like, I'm trying so hard, and you're not, why are you not getting what I'm saying? Or like, why are you taking it so wrong? And, it's like, so first tool I have for you amidst this conflict was taking space, right? So sometimes I think we try to figure out the conflict with the person that we're in conflict with right there. Like, we got to figure it out today, right now. Like, what the fuck is going on? But like, oftentimes I think it's actually really important to step apart and just be away from the situation, away from each other, especially if it's somebody you live with, especially if it's somebody you see all the time, especially if it's somebody you really want to invest in keeping this relationship with. I think it's very important to take space and to announce, okay, I need to take a moment away from this, away from you, just to breathe. And I think it's also important for both parties not to take that personal, right? Sometimes we just need a moment aside. We just need to take some time for ourselves. Second tool I would say in that too, which we use a lot more so this month, and it's been so helpful, is reaching out to your community and your safe people. So I think a lot of the time why toxic relationships will unfold and things will fall apart, right? And communication will fall apart too, is like, first of all, you're not trying to take the space. And then on top of that, you're not talking to other people about it. You're trying to just work it out between you two, but there's a reason, right? There's a reason we go to doctors. There's a reason we go to seek professional help when things are going awry and going left, right? We need other people's input, and it shouldn't be, you gotta be careful who you're talking to, right? Don't go talk to somebody who's going to shame you, but go to your safe person. I think especially when we're in conflict, I don't know, there's a lot of this want to be punished, or like we're used to being punished, especially if you were punished as a child. So you seek, I don't know, just feeling wrong and staying wrong. But I think it's important to remember, no matter what you're doing, you still have your inherent worth. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be respected, and go find the people who can hold you accountable, that you trust, that you have a different rapport with. Easier said than done sometimes, because sometimes we don't have community like that. And also still, I think it's important to, if you don't have community, right, in these moments, it's very important then when we're not in these moments to build community and connect with people that you can feel safe with. I think it's important for us to always just have at least one person that you feel that you can be yourself with. Your full self, your unadulterated self that can hold you when you need that. So review, right? Take space and reach out. Those are two big things that helped a lot in our conflict spaces. And I think in taking the space and in talking to other people, I was able to recognize, oh yeah, so a lot of the things that he's going through are not about me. That has nothing to do with me, right? His insecurity, that's not mine. And why am I then taking it on as I shouldn't. Of course, sometimes it feels almost natural to do that, but who does that help? Because now I'm frustrated with his feelings, and then he can't feel his feelings because I'm frustrated with them. That's unhelpful. You know what I'm saying? So in the taking space and in the reaching out is also really important to let go. Let go. I have one of the tools is grow and let go, right? a lot of the time we're trying to move through things, but we holding on to everything. Like, remember last time when you said, or this is like the 15th time that it's important to take to notice of patterns, right? If something keeps happening, but also recognizing that growth doesn't happen like that, right? If you're trying to work with somebody who's insecure about something, work on trying to be able to express feedback, and they're trying to work on receiving it. They're not, and if their whole life people have given them shitty feedback or yelled at them or shamed them, just because now you're coming in with a different energy, of course they can recognize that, but that doesn't change these deeply rooted and constantly practiced routine responses and reactions to when somebody's opening up to give them feedback. You get what I'm saying? So I don't know, it's a mixture of not taking it personal, but then also allowing them space to grow. You got to allow people space to make mistakes. And if you feel that you can't do that, if you cannot gracefully hold somebody in a mistake, then you might need to leave, because you could be hurting them, right? Because like we deserve space to make mistakes. It doesn't matter how old we are. It doesn't matter. All that matters is if you feel, again, if you don't have the capacity to do that, you don't got to tolerate nothing you don't feel like tolerating. But then also, I don't know, it's like important to understand what you're committed to, right? If you want this relationship to work, you have to recognize that conflict is part of relationship. If you're being, and also, hold up now, if we're talking about abuse, all this is different if we're talking about abuse and harm. Okay, somebody putting their hands on you, somebody making you feel like shit, somebody putting you down, somebody's abusing you verbally, mentally, emotionally, physically. This all goes out the window. I would still say take space and reach out to your people, but you don't necessarily need the grow and let go might be a little different, right? And I think this is actually where the third piece, the other tool that I came up with would be helpful, or that we came up with together, is a conflict contract. So establishing our boundaries, establishing emotional safety in the space. So like, for instance, feeling insecure about conflict, period, but then also feeling like somebody might throw you out of a house is stressful, right? So being able to say like, hey, that's not going to happen here. Nobody's getting thrown out of anywhere, right? Nobody's going to get yelled at, okay? There's no shame, there's no judgment in the space. Let's be clear about that first. I'm not judging you, right? If you're judging you, it's a different conversation, but let's try to make a space where we can put our judgments aside and just be real about what's going on and talk about the thing. Can we both commit to this, right? What are we both willing to commit to? What are we willing to suspend? What are we willing to engage in? Like, I'm uncomfortable, but I'll talk, okay? Or when I'm silent, it doesn't mean that I don't want to talk. It means I'm thinking, right? So I think it's important to kind of understand your behavior in the space. What is acceptable? What is unacceptable? If you're going to raise your voice with me, I cannot have this conversation with you, right? When you shut down, it's because I know you shut down. It's important for you to let me know. Are you thinking, or are you shutting down? Is there a different way I can ask the question? Also, I want to let you know it's always okay if you need clarification on what I'm saying, right? If you need an example, ask for it. I think it's important that, of course, conflict can build up a lot of emotions. We can get real lost in the sauce of the emotions. But also, I think it's really important to remain grounded, right? And remember what it is that you're doing this for. Why are you in this conflict right now? Why are you in a disagreement? First of all, there's a difference of needs happening, right? And it's because oftentimes we don't want to be in the space. We want to be in a different space. So how can we get through that space and keep each other's dignity and respect intact, right? So those are some of the things I got for you. It's been really, really wonderful navigating the space now because of that. Like, I think before we were trying to do a lot of opposite things, right? We were not taking space, so trying to figure it out together, not reaching out to other people, so holding on to everything and not being able to share it. You got to share stuff, right? Not necessarily approaching every day as a new thing. It was just like, for both of us, for me being like, this is happening again, and for him to be like, this is happening again, right? And that's unhelpful. And then we did have, thankfully, this conflict contract. It wasn't spoken out loud, but we did know and discuss and kind of like discuss and like after the moment. And a lot of the time these things, the take space and the reach out has to be in the moment. Sometimes it might be after the moment, but like when you feel like yourself starting to rise and you feel like anger is going to take over your words, or you can't be objective about what you're saying or things like that, that's when you need to take the space and reach out, right? That's important to recognize for yourself. There were some young people walking by. But these other things can be applied after the fact, right? It doesn't have to be right in the moment of the heat of the moment that we're going to figure out this contract, or we're going to remember that it's important to grow and let go. Bug. Hey. It can be outside of the moment, right? It could be later. It could be tomorrow. It could be the night of. It could be in 2 days. Like, I think it's important after a conflict how you resolve, how you get back in, connection, what you've learned from the conflict, right? And how you want to move forward. Because understanding that conflict is going to continue to happen. Like, in life is about growth. Life is about, I don't want to say life is only about discomfort, but like, it's not comfortable to grow all the time, right? Like, if you watch a seed bursting out of, or a plant bursting out of the seed, I'm sure it's not fun to break out of a shell and destroy yourself to become this new tree or this new thing, but it is part of life. There's a discomfort and growing pains. And I think having that understanding too is really helpful then in creating better tools of how to navigate conflict. It's not about avoiding conflict. It's not about, I'm going to learn how to swallow all this, or I'm going to learn how to not do this, depending on what it is, right? To not, so that you don't do that, but understanding why are we doing both things? Why? What is this conflict that keeps happening? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? My goodness. I don't want to kill you because I don't like to kill birds, but you gotta stop. Yeah, those are some of my thoughts. So I'll end this here because we call it lengthy. But if you have any other tools too that you use to navigate conflict, I'd love to know and I'd love to hear. So let me know.